Hey everybody, it's Michael. Welcome to New Victory Gardening. You see here, we got the first rain of the season. So in what was otherwise a very warm fall, those first storm clouds of late fall, early winter came through, wet everything down really good. And so now I wanted to get to planting garlic. Yeah, one of my favorite things. And so garlic is the topic for today's video. And this year, I think we'll learn something this year because this is not normally the way I've done it. I've been growing garlic maybe for about 9 seasons or something like that now, 9 or 10, something like that. And, you know, I had started off growing a lot of different varieties, and I grew them out in beds, and I grew them in containers and bags, and then I grew them back in the ground again. And I kind of came to this way of doing it where I have one dedicated bed for garlic, and I've been working on this bed for 5 years now, just improving the fertility of the soil, right? So adding compost, adding trace minerals, and whatever else plants need. What do you, vitamins, I guess you might call it, vitamins and minerals. Yeah, do plants take those? Anyway, getting the soil really nice and getting worms into it and fertilizing it with fertilizers that work well. And so now I planted, you know, usually in the fall, like early November, I'll plant garlic into this, and then it overwinters and grows out in the spring. And I have lovely, large, beautiful heads of garlic that are very flavorful. And so, you know, that being 10 varieties of hardneck garlic that I've grown, and then I've grown the soft neck variety that's very common, like the one you see in the grocery store. And I've grown elephant garlic, and came to this method just because it's been consistent in producing really good, flavorful garlic. And so the only thing, you know, is I've been on that schedule for a few years now, like I say, upwards of 5 years, where I plant it in the November timeframe, and then it overwinters and comes out and grows through the spring to produce in the June timeframe. And it was really consistent. You know, I kept records of it. And this year I was not able to do any of that. This year, 2025 into 2026, was just one of those years. And so we had an exceptionally warm fall, to the point to where you see there's still leaves on my trees, and that is in December. And so I'm like, finally we had a break where it started to cool off, and I could actually conceive of planting garlic. And so here I am, you know, tilling in what little bit of weeds have grown. And then you see my bags of fertilizer. I use chicken fertilizer just to fertilize the soil. But I like it all to sit for like maybe 3 weeks, 2 weeks, you know, to sit and settle. And when I do this, I only try to till about the top 3 inches of the soil, just breaking it. But that also unsettles whatever worms I have living in there. And so that's why I go ahead and fertilize with this natural fertilizer, then wet it and let it all settle, so that, you know, the worms have a chance to rebuild their nests and kind of re-invite themselves. And then I just do my best to not disturb, not recompact the soil. You know, I spend a lot of time building organics and nutrients into the soil so that the soil is nice and loose and it's not restrictive, right? If you grow your garlic in clay or in a really tight soil, it can restrict the head's ability to grow out and big. And so here we are testing it out now. I've never planted this late before, you all. And so I'm like, well, here's another opportunity. Instead of being disappointed, here's another opportunity to learn. And in so learning, hopefully I could gain a little bit more resilience, right? That's how I try to see this is, you know, you have some challenges, you do things a little bit differently. You deal with a super wet year, you deal with a super dry year, you deal with a hot year, you deal with a cool year. And through it all, you get a little bit of experience, like in a variety, and you're still able to bring some kind of a harvest, sometimes more of a harvest, sometimes less of a harvest, but you're able to bring a harvest through it all. And so that's so reliable, and that becomes reliable, and it's so valuable, right? When you're like growing food to offset your need for money, right? That's the whole point of this channel, is let's grow a little bit of food wherever we can, in a container, in the yard, wherever it might be, and use that food so that we don't have to use money to buy food. We could save and use that money for something else. And, you know, ultimately a goal in New Victory Gardening, besides like the physical benefits of growing, is to maybe break some of our reliance on money, right? So we don't have to use money to get every single thing we might need in life, right? We might be able to trade with somebody. We use trees and vegetables that are in our yard. We have to worry about having healthy sources of food, at least a small portion or maybe a larger portion, right? We don't have to use money for everything, right? That was the original concept of these types of gardens, why people grew them, and why people grow gardens before they even became known as victory gardens. And so here we go. Why don't we learn together? I tell y'all, my tiller there, I got spoiled. So my tiller needs to go to the shop and get kind of tuned up. And so another time I did one of my other beds. It's an 8-foot by 10-foot bed. And my tiller didn't work. So I had to do it the old fashioned way. I had to go get a hoe and break the soil and turn it over and rake it out to get it ready. And I was only trying to break the top 4 inches of soil. And I tell you right now, I was really missing my little tiller. Having to do that stuff by hand is quite a bit of work. You know, man, you have to appreciate my fathers, my grandparents and great grandparents. They were not lazy people. They worked hard to produce the bit of food and save money. And so I guess it goes in that tradition. We should probably be a bit thankful that we are able to do the same and have tools to help make it a bit easier. And so you see my last step here, and then we got about 2 weeks of waiting, is to wet it down real good and invite the worms back into it and kind of reset it up for planting. Well, we got a break in the weather, and it's actually even a little bit warm. And so what happened was I didn't plant garlic because there was so much going on. Let me turn on my mic here, huh? So I didn't plant garlic because there was so much going on. First, the weather was super warm. So it went from super warm to super cold in like just a couple days. And then we had really cold weather. So my window for normally planting garlic, which most of you probably use too, right? It's just fall before, just maybe around the time leaves fall or just after they fall. I missed it. Like I completely missed it, man. Stuff was going on. I got busy. It happens from time to time, and I know it happens with you all. So what I did was I grabbed this old shoe box from my wife, and I just stowed away some stuff that I thought maybe I could plant later on, and I put this out in the garage. And so today we'll plant it. I have some garlic cloves here. Hopefully they're still good. These are my own. These are from ones that I planted last year, and I've just kept, and they overwintered. So garlic was $25 a pound. Like some of the places that I look at for garlic, like seed, it was $25 a pound this year. And so I says, well, I'm gonna have to keep my garlic, keep some of it back, and hopefully it'll sprout and grow, because that is way too expensive for garlic seed. You know, like, yeah, I don't know what happened. It was just one of those years. Maybe they didn't have enough. And then a few potatoes from the store I'll plant later. Actually, I put them in this pot over here. But, you know, the things you do, that way you have little pieces of food. I had an empty pot. I throw some potatoes in it. I got this garlic that is my planned planting. It's the thing that I plant in the winter time. And then a few other crops of opportunity, so that there's always like a little bit of food growing out here in the garden. And so, yeah, that's the goal for today, is to get this garlic into the ground and hope that it grows. And we'll see and go from there. And so it's a late planting, so it'll be a bit of an experiment as well. So, yeah, let me get the ground together here. Okay, so it is about 3 weeks later. It actually probably rained 2 of the 3 weeks, nonstop rain every single day. And so this is the first break we had. It's January, so it is literally 2 months behind schedule. Normally I plant in November. This is the first time I've planted garlic this late. But the weather, well, the forecast is saying that the weather is going to cooperate enough, so it's not going to be immediately cold and wet again. So I'm putting this garlic in the ground where we have a little break in mild weather. And I think the hope is that within, you know, a bit of time, some rain will come back through. And since I'm burying the garlic in it, it doesn't get cold enough. It's not going to get cold enough to damage the garlic, but rain will come through and help the garlic settle out as baby roots as they're growing out. And then the plants will settle in and they'll grow something close to how they normally grow. And so here you go, by hand. I tell you right now, it's a good thing to get a bit of exercise, especially on a nice day like today. And so I'm going to carve out rows here. I like to carve my rows out along the irrigation drippers there. That's what those brown lines are. They're irrigation drippers. And so they're 1 gallon per hour. And what I found is in my, part of the valley in Northern California, that the 1 gallon per hour drippers work better, especially for vegetable crops. Like some other crops, you might be able to use the 0.6 gallon per hour or different. But for my crops in my place, this 1 gallon per hour drip line actually works good. It produces good crops. And also what's helpful too is I have an irrigation system here. It's what they call smart, and I really couldn't resist it when I went to the store and I was putting in and thinking about this whole garden. What could take the majority of your time or most or all of your time is watering, right? Because you have to come in, especially when it's hot outside, you have to water during the day, you have to water sometimes in the middle of the day and then in the evening. It really depends on how hot it is and how stressed your plants are. And so I had that combination with clay soil that didn't really take water. Like clay soil, you kind of have to flood clay soil so that the water can go down and fully soak it, and that takes time. And so what you find is you spend all your time watering just to keep your plants moderately well. But with a drip system, you can turn on a small amount of water that'll go down and soak very thoroughly. And it kind of overcomes, and clay actually can become your ally because clay holds water so good. So once you're able to get clay wet, it holds water even when the temperature's really hot. And so then regular watering like really becomes much more effective. And so that's why you use drip systems. But in this box, I worked in a lot of organic matter to keep the soil nice and loose. And my goal was to invite red worms or else earthworms into the garden and have them, be symbiotic with my whatever I was planting in here. We all know worm castings are great. And the other thing was I wanted the soil loose enough so that it wasn't compacting, and my garlic cloves were just free to lay comfortably and grow out as big as they wanted to grow. And so you'll see me like stepping funny and doing things awkwardly here. And that's the reason. It's because I don't want to compact this bed. So I just have this bed where I walk around the edges. And I try to minimize my stepping either in the rows where the garlic's planted or in the bed so that the soil stays loose and I'm not compacting it. So you see me like spreading my legs across 2 sides and trying to only walk on the corner and then trying to plant it without stepping in the middle there. That's the reason why. It's not any other reason, like any special reason, but I just would like to keep this bed as loose as possible and just let gravity settle it so that the garlic can grow freely. And so I got 1 row in, and here I am working on the second of 3 rows. The good thing is that garlic's really easy to plant. That's an earthworm. I just thought I'd show there were living in there until I upset them. And so, I plant 3 rows. I run them along the irrigation with it, even though I think you could do both. But you can, I find it better if I run that line of drip right along the base of my plants. Then I know they're getting a lot of water right from the start and it's all good. And so I have enough drip line there to where it's overlapping and it kind of floods the whole area. But I much prefer, it just seems to be more secure, I guess I'll say, when I'm running it right along the base of the plants and I know that the water is going down directly into them. So row number 1 and row number 2. Each one has 11. 11's the magic number, I guess, this year. But luckily, I'm hopeful that my garlic will sprout. It looks pretty good still. Some of that garlic I planted actually all of the garlic I planted last year. So fingers still crossed. Okay, so planting the last row here, you'll notice that I have to do I'm walking in between rows so that I don't, try not to compact where the garlic is. Doing my best not to. But you see, you get into some interesting positions. You have to kneel down, you have to stretch out a bit, and I think that's all a part of planting, and I think that's also good. It's good for you to get that in as you go in your daily chores. You kind of gently stretch and move and flex, and so hidden benefit of planting. Last row, I think I'll say it a little bit later at the end. I think I have like 33, something like that, cloves of garlic, and that's what we ended up with this year. It's all garlic from last year's crop, so I kept it. After I cured it, I kept it in the refrigerator for, let's see, June until January. So what is that? Maybe 7 months, something like that. It was kept. That's another benefit of growing these two varieties. So Music and Metechi are the varieties I'm growing here. Music especially is just an excellent keeper. And so it'll last, once you cure it, it'll last in the refrigerator for just a long, long time. And so it gives you an option. Like this year, garlic was really expensive, the seed, I should say. And so I could just use what I had. I kept some aside, and I've been able to plant it and use it. And so that's kind of another benefit. And so now kind of just spreading over the bed, spreading out, covering up footprints and compressions, trying to just make it look a little bit pretty. I have enough compost in this bed that this year the compost is actually a compost and a mulch, right? So garlic really works well when you mulch it. You put some mulch on top of it after you plant it. And what I found works best is a finely chipped wood product. So like say you do some trimming of branches in the fall, and you have that, if you can make that into small wood chips and use that to mulch over the top of the garlic as you plant it, it really works good. The garlic really responds to that and really likes the soil environment that it creates. But for me, also what works good is to just have a good high quality compost, and then your drip lines you can put in and the watering will stay even. All right, everyone, that's it. Garlic is planted. I planted 33 cloves, Metechi and Music, my favorite two. And so fingers crossed, this will be another year of learning, I guess. It's funny how you can learn every single year. And so I've never planted it this late before. And so I'll be curious to see if it sprouts, when it sprouts, and then when I'm able to get a harvest of garlic from it. I only use this bed for garlic. I like having really high quality garlic to cook with and to make products with. And so not hair products, anything like cooking products, right? Like clarified butter, you know. But anyway, I like only using this bed for that. That way it stays nice and healthy and it's always ready. And so far so good. It's been 5+ years of doing it that way, and it's worked. So wish everyone well. If you haven't started yet, when you start, and for those folks who live further south and can garden almost year round, wish you well also. Hope to talk to everybody again in the next video.